Today's January 14th. That means that we're reading John chapter 12 today. Now, John chapter 12 is full of a bunch of kind of little stories. It starts out with Mary, the sister of Martha, the sister of Lazarus, the man who Jesus had brought back, kind of bust into this meeting, bust into this meal, this celebration, and really anoints Jesus. She kind of gives him all that she has. She breaks this flask open of nard, this ointment from the plant of the Himalayas, and just pours it all over him. And the disciples, Judas and some other disciples, start talking about how much of a waste that is. And Jesus stops and says, it's not a waste. It's all that they had. It's all they knew how to do. And everybody else should be like that. Everybody else should give all that they have for Jesus. While this is going on, we instantly see in verse 9 that the Jews are off on the side having their own meeting, and they're plotting to kill Lazarus, the man who literally Jesus has brought back to life. They're plotting to kill him because so many people are hearing about this man who Jesus brought back. They're believing in Jesus, and they're believing that he is the Son of God, the Messiah. And so if they kill Lazarus, that means he would die, which would mean that Jesus' powers were not bigger than the grave. They could have just said he was sick or he was knocked out. They could have said a lot of different things. And so they were planning to kill him. But while all this was happening, if you remember a couple chapters ago, Passover was coming. And everybody was wondering if Jesus was coming to Jerusalem because all the leaders of the church wanted to kill him. Well, verse 12, we see he's coming. He's coming in. So there's a huge crowd. And as Jesus is riding in on the colt of a donkey, this young donkey, the crowds are screaming out, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the King of Israel. And they're just kind of doing this huge event. The Hosanna, Son of God. Oh my gosh, he's here. The Messiahs are here. And even all this is happening, the disciples are not even really understanding all that's happening. There's some prophecy being fulfilled there. Lots of things are happening. But when you read the other parts of this kind of Hosanna thing, the crowd does this, and he finally gets there, and the parade's kind of done, and everybody starts to say, well, who is this man? It was almost like they kind of just did this without knowing what they were actually saying, really knowing who Jesus was. And so, but while this was happening, these Pharisees and the church leaders, they were just getting more angry and more angry. Well, after this parade was over, some Greeks, some non-Jewish people were coming to the disciples, and they wanted to talk to Jesus. And so the disciples were saying, you know what? We got to talk to Jesus about this. Stay here. Let me go talk to Jesus. And so Philip and Andrew, they went and told Jesus that there's some Greeks that want to see him. And Jesus answers with this line that says, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. And basically what that means is Jesus was saying, it's time for me to truly show my glory, which is really going to take me to the grave, is really going to make the leaders hate me even more, want to kill me even more, and they'll even go on and do this. And so as he's telling this, he tells a little parable about a grain of wheat falls to the earth to dies, and it remains alone. And that's exactly what Jesus was doing. He was going to the earth, and he was dying alone so that that grain of wheat would resurrect itself into something bigger and better. Seed falls, it dies, but something greater grows out of that. And of course, Jesus' resurrection is what he was talking to. And he follows that up with a good bit of passage of chapter 12 talking about the Son of Man must be lifted up. Now, this has a lot of connotations with it. It's talking about the cross on a hill. People that look toward Jesus is going to be saved. There's a lot in this. But basically what he's talking about is this idea that he has to die. Jesus has to die on a cross. It was the only way. And so he was saying his soul was troubled, and he prays to his Father, and there's a voice from heaven that thunders down, and everybody hears it. And after this, Jesus even tells the crowd, that voice was for you guys. It wasn't for me. I know God is with me. It's so that you guys would know that God is with me. And so this goes on. And what's the craziest about all of this is this chapter 12, it kind of ends with the unbelief of people. After all this has happened, of all the miracles, of all the signs, the voice from heaven, people still are not believing in who Jesus is. And today that saddens us, but a little bit it should give us some comfort as we go out in Christians and we tell our friends and our coworkers and our family, and as we witness, not everybody will be drawn to the cross. Here were people that literally saw and heard the audible, physical body and words of Jesus, and yet they still didn't believe. And so all we can do is spread the good news and tell everybody our story, and hopefully that draws them to Jesus. And he ends chapter 12 with this idea that Jesus came to save the world, just like we saw in John chapter 3, just like we saw in John chapter 5, just like we saw in John chapter 9. We see this kind of repetitive over and over again. Jesus did not come to condemn the world, but he came to save the world. And he came to the world to save because we were all condemned at the beginning. Jesus didn't walk through and just say, hey, you get to go to heaven, you get to go to heaven. We were all destined for hell. And it's those who will believe that are being saved. And that is why Jesus came, to bring us salvation. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this. We're getting close to the crucifixion. We're getting close to the last couple days. We're in the last week of Jesus's life. And I hope you can hang on for the next couple chapters, because these are the life-changing chapters. They're going to teach us so much about who God is and about who Jesus is, but more importantly, about who and what the gospel is. We thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you're hanging in there. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.